That's a Boo fam. This is Derric Moore, and as most of you know, I am a PK, a preacher kid, and like a lot of people, I grew up in the church. I have some fond memories of being in church, like listening to the choir, but also I have some not so fond memories, like being pinched because I was clowning in church and stuff, or um, sitting there trying to quiet your growling stomach because um, you're supposed to let out 45 minutes ago, and I'm hungry. But when I became a teenager, I lost my faith in God and I started questioning everything I was ever taught about the church. And one of the first things I started wondering about or thinking about was this whole thing about the Holy Ghost, catching the Holy Ghost and speaking in tongues. Now, there was this other PK I used to hang around with whom I would call Jay. And Jay was pretty funny and everything, but he was notorious for capping. And, that's part of the reason why I hung out with him. But one of the things that Jay used to do all the time that I thought was real funny was he would just get the Holy Ghost and speak in tongue. And then right after he get the Holy Ghost, he'd come right out of it and go right back to, clowning and acting crazy and all that kind of stuff. I used to always wonder, how was Jay able to go in and get the Holy Ghost and speak in tongues? And then when I started noticing something, I started listening a little bit more, and I noticed that every time they spoke in tongues, it sounded like they were speaking an African language or so. It was really heavily vowed. At the time, I couldn't figure it out, so I ended up studying the Kemetic Tree of Life. And one of the things I learned about the Kemetic Tree of Life was that there was 10 spheres, but I didn't have a practical way of applying it. But some years later, when I learned about Spiritism, I discovered that according to Allan Kardec, there was 10 types of spirits that existed, and that's when it clicked. To me, it became obvious that the 10 spheres of the Kemetic Tree of Life refer to the 10 dimensions of consciousness, which have been allegorized and personified throughout Kemetic lore as the Neteru. You see, when I began to understand that the Neteru were not gods and goddesses in the classical sense of the word, but principles of nature or nature, it started to make sense. That what most people were referring to as gods and goddesses, I was seeing them as various levels of spirits. For instance, there's not just one Mpu or Anubis, because that would be impossible for this one god to travel all over place at the same time. Instead, it makes more sense that there are numerous Mpu or Anubis spirits that exist once you understand the nature of the spirit. So when Mpu is called upon, one of those Mpu spirits would come and answer one's petitions. This means that the Holy Ghost is the Kemetic Raw, and like most energies, there's a high and low level. The highest energy level is Osir or Osiris, which is the personification of the higher self. And the lowest level is Set, which is the personification of our ego self. So the reason my old church friend Jay could catch the Holy Ghost and return to his heathenistic ways was because he was only catching the lower level of the Holy Ghost, or of Ra. Now, what this means in a practical sense is that there's a host of spirits surrounding us, and it is our thoughts that we harbor that determine which spirits are attracted to us. If we harbor thoughts that glorify our ego, symbolized as Set, then we attract low-level spirits to us that do not further our spiritual development, like my teenage friend, Jay. Therefore, it's in our best interest to harbor thoughts that promote, increase, and strengthen our connection to our higher self, which is symbolized as Osiris. When we do this, we attract higher spirits that further our spiritual development. And this is one of the ways in which we can apply the Kemetic Tree of Life. Thank you.